The other thing I want to show you is OpenStreetMap, which is not Ordnance Survey data. It's the Wikipedia of mapping, if you think about it like that. So anyone can upload information to OpenStreetMap in the same way that anyone who's a Wikipedia editor can change a Wikipedia article. And OpenStreetMap's super cool because it's got information that you can't get any other way. One of the cool things that it's got, let's find somewhere a little bit more exciting, like London, is on the right-hand side, there's this thing called layers. And obviously you can change the map to show you different pieces of information, like a cycle map, for example, transport map, where bus stops and train stations are and that kind of thing. However, there's three little things down here. One is map notes. So every time you turn on map notes, what this will do is it kind of basically like lets you in on the mind of the Wikipedia editor who's changing things in OpenStreetMap, which is Celine here somewhere? There's another one. Is Lowe here somewhere? Has Workplace Gallery closed here? The website has its London address as 50 Mortimer Street, Fitzrovia. Basically, these are people who are trying to keep updated a map where they know where every shop is. And these are their little comments to each other about what's going on where. And I've been really surprised that there are some really interesting sites where you turn on map notes and someone 2 years ago has made a note that has led you to a piece of information about your site that you never would have found out any other way. This is all completely public. It's super cool. Has Pret expanded here? There you go. There's obviously also map data, which is kind of the outlines. And this is the one that I think is really cool. And it is public GPS traces. What that means is people have just set their phones to share their GPS data with OpenStreetMap, and they've just left their phones on and they've walked around the city. And all it's doing is just saying, I know where people are walking. And so you can turn this on, and what it does is it colors the line depending on which direction someone's moving. So you can see that the line is colored because people are moving from northwest to southeast. And this is kind of green because they're moving from southeast to northwest. So you can see the line would obviously look the same if you didn't color it depending on which direction someone's actually moving. So what you've got here is a map of a city, which is actually not where the roads are, but it's where people actually walk. You can see where people actually go. Let's try and find somewhere. I mean, look at this kind of like, it's almost like you're not looking at roads anymore, which are very straight and defined and kind of like bounded, but you're looking at an organism with kind of blood vessels going everywhere, which is super cool. And this information is completely free and open source and exists for the whole of the UK. So let's just head up to, there's High Wycombe. Let's head up to Oxford. That's Aylesbury. I've gone too far. Where's Oxford? Here we are. So let's see if we can find Headington campus. There aren't too many open GPS things, but maybe you should sign up to OpenStreetMap, leave your phone on, let your movements around campus be mapped for public information. Tell where you are at all times. But certainly in city centres and that kind of thing, really, really interesting ability to kind of see that overlay. Right, I'm going to stop showing you data sources because I could do this all day, and it's super cool and fun. But I also want to give everyone just an opportunity to now say, okay, right, we've just overloaded you with information for the last hour and 45 minutes. Do you have any questions? Is there anything that you want clarified? Whether that's about the structure of the course coming up, or about anything I've shown you already, or any other question?
Can we submit work that we do for this month or this unit?
Yes, absolutely. Go on, Toby. Take this one.
It's because it's this kind of.
Did everyone hear the question?
Yeah. So can we submit the stuff we do for this for other modules? The answer is yes, but it's a good question because it involves a bit of academic integrity, which is about double counting of work. Now, you've probably heard about academic integrity, which is not to pass off work as your own, not to plagiarize, not to submit something for several assignments. The reason that it's slightly different in digital culture is because we're not asking you to operate at the level of finished work. So if it's one thing to kind of do one essay and then cut chunks out of it and stick them into another essay, we're looking at your process. We're looking at how you get to something. So when you put this work into your portfolio as process work, you'll probably, most likely, have iterated it in some way anyway. You'll have advanced it because you've got several months after, or a couple of months afterwards. But if in the unlikely event you actually choose to submit the same exact image, just reference it, say from digital culture. And that's the way to avoid that. All of academic integrity revolves around a little bit of your own sense of what's right and what's wrong and behaving in an ethical way. So no one here really wants to pass off work. So just be a little bit upfront about it. The key, though, is the offset between the submission for digital culture and the submission for your design studio. It's very unlikely you'll be finished with your design project for this. You can, of course, use the semester one project for this as well, though. But honestly, I really do strongly advise you to use the digital culture tasks as a way of exploring your design project. So it might be tempting to go, all right, we've come to March. I've got a 3D model. I've got plans and sections of my semester one or my first task in my studio. I'm just going to plonk those in. In the long run, that doesn't do you any good. You've already learned those bits. Push yourself a little bit further, and I'd strongly advise you to use your current project, whatever's happening in March, as your submission for digital culture. Because that way, you really get to take a shortcut, which is to use this module to find something out about your architecture. Does that answer your question? Thank you. Good question.
Link to that, questions that come up most years around... I had it in my mind, but it's gone. There was a very specific thing that tends to come up. It'll come back. It will come back. Any more questions? I'm sure there are more burning away in terms of what the year is going to be like.
There was a question earlier about, do we have to use Rhino?
Yes.
We should answer publicly.
Yeah.
No, you don't have to use Rhino. We're software agnostic, which means that we don't really care what you use. And I know Ralph said everyone can pick up SketchUp and learn it in half a day. You can pick up SketchUp and learn it in half a day, but you'll very soon encounter the limitations of SketchUp. It's quite a good tool, actually, for sitting with a client and sketching something out. But the clue is in the title of SketchUp. It's called SketchUp for a reason. There is a pro version of it. And surprisingly, quite a few smaller offices do use SketchUp because it's quite cheap to use. We're quite plural in the way we look at software, and Chris and I, that there are different tools for different jobs. It's very hard to do parametric work, for example, in SketchUp. It's much easier to do that in something like Rhino or even 3D Studio Max or Cinema 4D. So there are lots of different bits of software that do slightly different things, and some of them do things really well, some of them do things less well. The best bet is to not worry about which particular piece of software that you're going to become absolute expert in, but use this opportunity whilst you've still got the time and you haven't got thousands of jobs coming in and children and all sorts of stuff that will take your time later on in life to learn as much of it as you can. And you'll find that lots of the ways of doing are very similar amongst the softwares. So the premises remain the same. What the software can do becomes slightly different. So we always just encourage you to use an advanced piece of software, and you'll quite quickly learn what those are. It's pretty much anything that requires a little bit of thought to get invested in. When you start to use SketchUp, it's very, very simple to use. So SketchUp is fine, but please push yourself a bit further.
Are we entitled to like a discount for these softwares? Because
a number of them, yes, and some of them free.
Some of them free, which is nice. Blender's free, and Blender can do almost everything that all the other ones can do, and it's getting really, very good. And I swear, if I had my time again, that's probably the software I'd put my most of my effort into, because it's free and it's well supported, and there are lots of plugins for it, and it's evolving at a huge rate. All of the Autodesk software you can get for free. If you sign up for a student account with Autodesk, you can get AutoCAD, Revit, 3D Studio Max, Maya, all sorts of really interesting software. Rhino is relatively expensive, but I'm just getting to shortly. I'll get to an email to everyone saying, would you like to take part in a Rhino group buy, which I can get you a student license for around about £100. That student license turns into a commercial license when you finish, which is why it's a reasonably good deal to do. So there will be an email from me, hopefully within the next week, saying, do you want to buy Rhino? I have to get 50 people to do it to get the discount. It's usually £200 or so.
It's £800 if you're not a student.
Yeah.
So already it's much better if you're just a student. But so I bought Rhino 6 when I was a student, and I've used it for 10 years. It's paid for itself over and over again. But that's me because I'm digital. So you have to decide whether it's worth it for you. But I love Rhino personally, so that's where I'm going to teach. But you are going to find different tools that do different things.
And it's on all the stuff that we're going to talk about is on the machines upstairs. This is important. Yeah. The last one is the Adobe Suite. The Adobe Suite is an expensive piece of software.
Yeah,
it is possible to get for free if you search around enough, but it's a quite relatively expensive piece of software. But we have it on all of our machines upstairs. We can't offer you that for free. Adobe just won't let us. It's £16 a month for the Creative Suite. They would argue that that's about 6 coffees. I don't know what world they're living in at the moment, but it is about 6 coffees. But it's available on all machines upstairs. And there's the open source software guide, though GIMP
and Affinity is a very, very cheap version of the same thing, but you still have to pay. I remember what I was going to say. So a question that comes up every year is, because of this, like you were saying, the design studio work and the digital culture work, they're supposed to go hand in hand. But every year you're in a studio and people say things like, I don't have a site yet, or I don't have a building yet. So I don't know what to model because I don't have a site, I don't have a building. I'm actually doing this thing that doesn't really have that kind of much of a particularly obvious site, or it doesn't have a particularly fleshed out building idea yet. My response to that is twofold. Start to move towards those things as quickly as you can with your tutors, but also, if you don't have a site, it doesn't matter. Just pick something. And if you really are struggling, just pick something nearby here as a starting point, because there's tons of data that you can use. But don't think that the combination of your design studio and digital culture means that you have to wait for the design studio to tell you what you're doing before you can advance in digital culture. The data is available for you to start doing things right now. And so if, probably you don't have a site, in the inverted commas kind of like traditional way. Well, go back to your childhood home or somewhere you enjoyed going on holiday, or I don't know, just find something that interests you as a starting point. And it'll be great for the portfolio, and it will give you tools that you can use on any other site. This is kind of what we're trying to do. We're not trying to say you're going to become an expert in how to get data for this site. We're going to try and make you experts in how to get data on any site, so that any projects you drop into, you can work for that. More questions? We've got 2 more minutes. Yeah.
When we go into more abstract representational techniques, like CJ Lin kind of things?
You definitely can. I have a soft spot for various much more abstract things, but if we've got time, I can show you. I will. I don't think we plan to do any Houdini. Okay. You can kind of enjoy this to your heart's content, but this is some of the stuff that I've done over the years. That it's not really in a kind of like, hey, this is. You couldn't do this in Revit, shall I say this? And to a certain extent, it's kind of questioning some aspects of creating space in a digital form. This is even just asking questions of, what does a drawing look like when you're using digital tools to make a drawing with different line weights, for example. So this is all done with procedural scripting. This is a project I did with Toby. Some kind of more out there stuff. So absolutely push yourself to use these tools. Pretty much everything that you see here, I didn't do with anything that you won't have access to. A couple of things, the approach maybe, is a little bit esoteric, but my suggestion to you, so CJ Lim, good example, when you look at someone's work and you think that sparks something in me and I want to follow that, my suggestion is that what will happen is you will try and replicate and you will fail and you will discover something else along the way that you like even more or that comes even more easily to you. So don't think of it in terms of I must copy someone else's work. What script did they use to do this? Or what software program did they use to do this? Start with the principle of I'm trying to get over here, and you'll go on this windy journey of trying things out. And along the way, you'll discover all sorts of things, and you'll end up over here, but with your own style. So that's where I would I could show you how I did every single one of these things, but I would rather you kind of experimented yourself. Does that help? Cool. I think we're out of time. There'll be more to come. See you next week. Oh, yeah, sorry. It's that one.